Welcome back into the National Rundown. We are now on episode 16, and once again, I've been saying this every week, but we have a really nice episode here today because we're going to be going over kind of a big wrap-up on the CBL season. The award winners have finally been announced. First team, second team, coach of the year, MVP, you name it. We're going to be breaking down it all, as well as kind of going through some of the CFL action this week. As we're kind of airing this, there's a game going on, so we'll kind of talk about that briefly, but otherwise, we're going to go deep into these games this week and kind of get Geono's thoughts, and we're going to get his thoughts on a kind of a big mid-season take as well. Me and Owen on North of the End Zone went kind of in-depth there, but we want to get his thoughts as well. And then as we kind of round out this episode, we're going to go into a little fun segment, giving him some random list, kind of predicting. We did that a couple weeks ago with the CFL. We're going to run that back again. And then lastly, we're just going to send you guys off with kind of a brief scheduling update on everything that's going to be going on in the future weeks. But without further ado, Geono, once again, glad to be back here again with you another week. How are you doing this week? And, you know, what is your initial thoughts kind of leading me from your intro into the CBL Awards?
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I'm really excited to be sitting here talking with you because I think there is some really, really big things to be talking about in the CBL Awards. This is probably the biggest shock of the week. I think, you know, everything was on, let's just say after the finals, everything was kind of, you know, I think smooth sailing. There wasn't too much news coming out of the league. And then all of a sudden we get this bomb that gets dropped on us. I think it was today. I think it was dropped today. Yeah. And man, oh man, did that kind of cause a ruckus. Like, I think let's kind of go through the list right now. Like, obviously, I think most people probably have, you know, looked at the list at this point, but nonetheless, you know, kind of taking it through. Let's start with the CBL All-Canadian team. Okay, so you get Tyrese Samuel with Vancouver Bandits, right? You know, up for Canadian Player of the Year. You kind of knew that was going to be there. Same thing with Frank Mitchell from the Scarborough Shooting Stars. That felt like really, really good locks that they were going to be on the first team. You know what I mean? And I think, to be honest with you, I think the other thing is I would like to see an All-Canadian second team. In my opinion, I think it might be really cool just to see where people,
those guys, right?
Yeah, and see where guys were maybe where you could say, okay, I could see this guy maybe flipping or this guy maybe coming up next year. But nonetheless, I digress. That's a smaller thing. Quincy Guerriere from Montreal Alliance, Sean Miller-Moore, Calgary Surge, and Jaden Betty-Acko from the Saskatchewan Mamba. I almost said Saskatoon Mob. I think they are. Are they not the
Saskatoon Mob?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the league messed that up. Okay, they're used to the Saskatchewan Rattlers, but that is funny because you can literally see it on the team page. It's Saskatoon. Yeah. Well, nonetheless, okay, the CBL is still living in 2025, but nonetheless, we are now in 2026, and that's a pretty good all-Canadian team. I know we kind of talked a little bit before hopping on. Like, it felt like they got the team right? Like, I don't see anybody on here that I'm like, this person does not deserve to be on here. I know some people were talking about, you know, Hildebrand being there, but to be honest with you, like, I think he came up a little bit more. He's the only guy I can really think of that was not on this team that I think people could make an argument for.
Well, yeah, I think for me, you know, obviously these are what is kind of recognized as regular season awards. And obviously Hildebrand's impact was monumental in the playoffs. And, you know, I'm the first guy to absolutely love what he has and love what he had done this season. But, again, I don't necessarily think his impact was fully there in that stretch down in the playoffs. So I can see, you know, where people are thinking that he should have been on this team. But, you know, I think they got it right. I think all these guys had such a great regular season. And, you know, even a guy like Quincy Guerriere, you know, maybe you would have expected more from him this season, but he was still great and good enough to make this all-Canadian team, so I think that's great. But, yeah, let's kind of move even past that kind of into Canadian Player of the Year, right? Now we can kind of talk about Tyrese Samuel winning that award. What are your thoughts there? I know it's kind of been that head-to-head battle with him and Frank Mitchell. Do you think they got this right with Tyrese?
Yeah, I think we both went for Tyree Samuel. And I
Yeah.
remember when we were doing it, like it was so close. And I think just where I edged out with like Tyree Samuel was that he scored, I think, a little bit more points.
Yeah.
And like it was so tight. That is one I could have went back and forth on, and you could have convinced me on either of them. I thought just because Tyree Samuel started more games as well, that's I remember that was one of the reasons. I thought that was probably the deciding factor in my opinion. But nonetheless, you also got, Frank Mitchell winning Sixth Man of the Year as well, which I don't think, I don't think we're going to complain too much about Canadian guys getting awards, especially, non-Canadian player awards. But I really thought that they got that one right. Like, I felt like it was Tyree Samuel. But at the same time, I think Frank Mitchell was right there, right? And they both proved they honestly probably, that was the one where I think, I probably was like, this is too close to call. I just think Tyree Samuel had it because he was a starter.
Yeah, no, honestly, fully agree. I think, yeah, I said this last week. Like, I think Tyrese's impact, as a bandit, it's just been amazing. And I think it's just so valued. And for him to be the Canadian guy there and to be such a star as a Canadian player, it's exactly what the league wants to encompass. And I think it's perfect for him to win that award once again. So let's kind of take a look at these all CBL teams now, kind of heading away from that Canadian all teams. But yeah, let's start with the second team. I think we can start there because I kind of want to ask you if there's any maybe switches you would have from the first to second team. But starting in that second team, TDM from the Mamba. You have Frank Mitchell, or sorry, not Frank Mitchell, Khalil Ahmad, you do have Frank Mitchell. Nick Hornsby and Matthew Cleveland. So I think this is honestly, I think they got it right. But
Yeah.
Do you think I'll start with the snubs. Like, would you say there would be any snubs that wasn't mentioned?
I don't think so, to be honest with you. I think like you could maybe you could say Devon Johnson, maybe. Like I'm looking through here on like guys that were really big scores, like Keontae Kennedy, maybe Cameron Tyson, maybe. Like I do think Nick Hornsby. I know some people might not agree with that pick, just because
that would be the guy. Yeah, that would be the last guy in for me, in my opinion. But I like the recognition with the Stingers, and I think for a team that didn't have a ton going right for them, and for them to honestly, I'd say respectable season. I think he deserves that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of like you never knew what you were getting with Edmonton. It felt like at the end of the year, I could say I felt like they had the talent, but they never really put it all together. It just felt like things maybe weren't like didn't pan out the way people expected it to. And I think in all of that, Nick Hornsby continued to produce what everybody kind of expects from Nick Hornsby. He's going to lead the team. I think he did an amazing job this year. Honestly, I don't think Edmonton is there even without Hornsby, and say you replace him with another guy. I think it would be really, really tough to imagine a guy that can really embody the Edmonton Stingers better than him. He's done an amazing job. I think he did a great job even in the playoffs as well, thinking about just what he meant to that team to be able to lead them up against a team they were not expected to be very close against. He was a really big part in making that a very close effort. So I think he just was an all-around dominant guy for Edmonton that was the lifeblood of that team. And I think that's something that you got to take into consideration for an all CBL team. Like, maybe he didn't score as many points as everybody else, but he also didn't play in as many games as everybody else. And I think that's probably what makes the difference as well. But he did a great job, and I think honestly he deserves it for me. But to be honest with you, looking at the whole thing, I think they got it right.
I think so too. I think there could be a debate for me, kind of, with TDM. Like, I think he had such a great season. I think I want to find a way to put him in the first team, but again, it's so tough.
It's jam packed. Like, I think the only guy you could realistically maybe bump is like Tyree Samuel, but then I don't like the all big men. Yeah. And I like no big men, all guards. I don't really like that. I really like kind of having more of a balance, like positions and then those things. I could see like TDM. 110% if you're ranking like the top 5 best players in the CBL this season. Yeah, I think he's in there, right? But I don't know. Tyree Samuel, I think, deserves his flowers for being able to say, I think he was the best big man in the league, and I think I think that's where he kind of edged out everybody else.
Yeah, and I mean the rest of this team, I don't think I stated it here yet, was Sean East, Javonte Smart, Teddy Allen, and Miles Powell. So yeah, like you said, jam-packed team, star power, and all these guys were just amazing this season, and that's just exactly the way to put it. Like they all stepped up for their squads, and Javonte Smart. I want to talk about him. Like the impact that he had coming into this Ottawa team. Like at the start of the season, we weren't expecting a lot, obviously, and he kind of just gave that boost, and I think that's what helped Matthew Cleveland as well. Honestly, like that was a great 1-2 punch. That it's kind of a shame they didn't have a more rounded team to be able to go deep, because I think that's a great punch there, but. That's just my thoughts as a Ottawa somewhat fan.
Believer. Yeah.
Believer.
Well, you mean he had 537 points this season. That was the second most, the only player behind Teddy Allen. Like, again, I think if people probably were making, like, some bigger arguments around an MVP guy, I think he's there 110% of the time. I'm kind of shocked that, again, more people probably wouldn't have thought. Like, that's again, the reason. I wonder if Miles Powell, say, wasn't on the Shooting Stars, and say they didn't have a 20-win season, like one of those two situations, I wonder if Smart gets the MVP nod, like instead of that. I think just, the 20-win season probably helps so much, because you only lost 4 games in a 24-game season. That's pretty amazing. I wonder if, say, that scenario happens where maybe Powell wasn't on the Shooting Stars, or the Shooting Stars don't get 20
question to raise.
Yeah. I honestly think, to be honest with you, I do think Smart probably does get a nomination. I still do think it goes to Teddy, though. Like, you go 24 of 24. Like, that's like Iron Man stuff, man. I don't know how many guys have been able to play, 24 games and put up those many points. I don't think I think that's the other thing, too. I will say, actually, I'm going to save that for when we get to the MVP thing, because it gets a little bit into my point about why this is kind of a big controversy. But nonetheless, I do think Smart probably would have been, I guess, our third MVP pick. That kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fair to say, right? And I think, I think we have to get to it now. Like, this was obviously, the MVP was the most backlash, I think, that was out of any of these awards thus far, and there was some outrage. There was a lot of social media work that went into this, with going back and forth with certain individuals. I won't get too much into that because I actually don't know the full story, and I didn't have time to really dive into that. But, there was some words back and forth anyways. But, yeah, Miles Powell gets the MVP nod this year over Teddy Allen, and it's safe to say Teddy and company was not too happy about that. But I'll let you kind of air it all out now. What are your real thoughts that are brewing up there? Because I can see it happening.
Yeah. I mean, I want to point something out. Like, Teddy Allen was one of two players to start in all 24 games. That right there is going to be really, 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 really difficult to break. Like, I think this is where it kind of becomes a little bit more of a interesting part of the debate, right? Is that Teddy had the single season scoring record. Miles Powell led his team to the best team record. And we talked so much last week about MVP versus best player in the league in that season. And I think there's an incredible difference between the two. And I think that is something that I just don't know how we want to define that. Maybe we want to rename it Player of the Year. And maybe, I just don't know. It's an age-old question. Everybody will debate this, from the NBA, NFL, everything. It's not just a CBL problem, but Teddy Allen, I don't think another player is going to touch this record for, at least next 3 years. 667 points. I remember doing the math. He averaged, 29 points a game, something like that. I'm not great with math, so that was a little bit later into the season, and it might have changed a little bit, but I don't know the next guy that can step into this league and play 24 games and be able to be good enough that you don't get called off to G League, for the summer league, and be able to do workouts and be able to consistently be healthy and be on a good enough team that you don't get rested and you can still contend. All the little circumstances that had to go right for this single season scoring record to be set, I look at it and I'm like, man, it's going to take a really, really special person to be able to do again, and really special circumstances. So for me, that's why I was a really big fan of Teddy's season, and I thought you can't really commemorate it any other way than a championship and MVP. But man, I felt like Teddy had the perfect case. I don't really know if there's another guy out there that could say, if that doesn't win MVP, I really would like to know what trumps that. And I think we found our answer is that you got to win 20 games. But to be honest with you, I don't think that, in my opinion, trumps the factor of what Teddy Allen did. I think credit to the Shooting Stars for 20 wins, all that stuff. Don't know if there will be another team that makes that, but that's a team. That's a team like effort, right? That's a team accomplishment. We're talking about a player. We're talking about one singular player, and I think that's where it came down to me, where I'm like, I don't know. I go with the guy that had the scoring stats over the guy that led that team to the most like historic wins, right? Yeah. So that's where I think that's where I get my side picked, and why I think this probably wasn't 100% the right call, but I can see again the appeal, but I think that there's just too much differences between an MVP versus a player of the year.
Dude, like I'm telling you, this is what it simply comes down to, and what it's been boiling down to is it's the 20-win season, and it's the team that truly I don't see it being that much of a gap compared to this gap in the scoring. Like you look at it, Teddy Allen 667 points, Miles Powell 481. Obviously Teddy played more games, and then you look at the field goal percentage. This is the biggest thing for me. Teddy shot 45% from the field, and Miles shot 38.2, and it's like, bro, like it's on a much higher clip as well. Like to be honest, man, like that it mind boggles, and I think that's why they're so upset. It's like, statistically, it's honestly a bigger gap than you think, and initially you kind of look at the two and you're like, okay, this is really close, but you dive into it, and honestly, Teddy's numbers are, I wouldn't even say not Miles, but it's like. It's a decent gap, and then
that's ironic.
The gap. Yeah, I don't think the gap is, between the win totals and that factor is not. It's definitely smaller than So that's kind of where it boils down to me, and I don't know who's fully making it. Like, do they vote? Is it a committee per se, or
it is? Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's like made up from, I think, and don't quote me on this, but I think it's from some of the league media people. I think like there's a lot of people on the CBC broadcast that vote. I think it's executives. I think it's like team personnel. So I think it's like everything. Like there's a lot of people that vote on this thing. And again, I think I can see that's why. And I understand as well if you're also kind of thinking from a perspective of what an MVP trophy wants to be rewarded for. I can understand again the why you want to give it to the guy that led the team to the most wins in the single season. Like that feels important, but man, it's been twice where single scoring record like guys have been snubbed of MVP, and I think it's fair to say, are we overrating it, or is it the league underrating that factor? I don't know. I think, to be honest with you, again, I want to go back to this point. Like, I don't know when that next guy is going to break this record. Like, just to think about, again, the circumstances. And you got to remember, there's so many of the guys that probably could break it. They came in late. They come in late, or they go off to Summer League, or their team does so well where it's like, again, a Miles Powell, where it's like, was he having to ball out and put up 30 a night so that they could actually make this thing work? I don't think so. Teddy had to score 53 one night, and he did a really good job. Like, he did a lot of things where I'm like, I think, like, that should equate to an MVP. And I think there's just so many things where I look at the individual part of the game, and I think, what more could this player have done? I don't know. I really don't know. Again, I think they did a good enough job. He also played without his running mate. Like he was supposed to be with Xavier from day one. That got held off until July 17th. And man, oh man, and that's something I felt like played into his case, right? Is that you saw what Teddy Allen was able to do without a number 2 guy right there with him. And not to say, Xavier Moon was like the second of that, but his duo, the duo to be completed, that wasn't there. And I think I'm just like, I don't know what else he could have done. I really don't. And that's what I would love to hear that. I would love to hear that, where everybody was kind of at to say, okay, this is what Teddy Allen needed to do to be better than Miles Powell in that conversation. But I want to know where that kind of, advantage was, because it really feels like the stats say it's Teddy, and I think that's kind of where I'm going to rest my case. I think I've said enough. I think I've covered my points, but it feels like that's kind of where I want to rest my case.
Well, I mean, this is kind of where I'll end it, because I'm fully in agreement with you. Like the stats exactly say it, and Has an MVP, it's kind of what I'm trying to go back and look here, is has an MVP ever averaged 38% from the field? Because to be
It's a
truthful,
good question.
like you look in the league and there's, so many guys that are averaging above, 40%. And you can say a lot for Miles, and he's great. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but, you know, I think that's something to be said. But
Yeah.
you look at the stats, and there's a lot to kind of break down. But I think, like I said, I think it's just boiling down to the win total, and I
Yeah.
don't think it's fair, to be honest. But
I agree.
yeah, let's keep trucking along. I know we spent a good chunk of time on there, but I'll just kind of state the last few awards rather than us going too in depth on it.
100%.
Valentine's, he won the Defensive Player of the Year. Then you look at Easton Tim, he came away with the Developmental Player of the Year. And then Miles did get the Clutch Player of the Year, which I think he deserved that one.
Yeah.
And then you look at the Officiating Recognition Award, Mike Thompson, great guy, And then Coach of the Year, Tyrell Vernon of the Scarborough Shooting Stars. And that's going to do... Oh, and Frank Mitchell, 6-man. I don't know if I said that, but that's going to do it for all of the awards there. But, yeah, a great set. But you look at this, and a lot of Scarborough, man. A lot of Scarborough. So, rightfully so. I mean, 21 season, but there's debates like we just had,
Yeah.
Is the win total weighing down a little too much on that? Who knows? But that might be a chat for another day. That is all for our free version of the National Rundown. If you enjoyed that, go subscribe to our Insiders portion. For only $2.99 a month, you can get our debates, news, headlines, and more. So make sure you go do that ASAP, and we will see you in the next one.